Okay, planning board, we are now live. We are recording. Phone lines will remain off. Go for it.
Very good. Good evening and welcome to the East Hampton Town Planning Board, our meeting of March 6, 2024. We have three matters on for work session, site plan reviews, subdivision reviews. And then we have just looks like one matter on for our regular meeting. But we have an executive session, which we're going to take care of first. So I'm going to make a motion now that the planning board move into executive session so that we may discuss matters that are subject to the attorney-client privilege.
I will second that.
Is there all those in favor of moving into executive session?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We passed 7-0. So we're going to go into executive session. We'll ask everybody to please leave the room and
Okay, planning board, you're back.
Say anything yet, he said.
Okay. Council, do I make the reference to no votes first, or do I take us out of executive session?
You make the motion to come out of executive session.
And I'll make
you
an
put a statement
announcement.
on the record that there was no decisions were made during the executive session.
You ready, Jody?
Nope.
No, you're not ready?
I am.
Now you are, okay. I make a motion that we come out of executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. During the time that the planning board was in executive session, it took no votes and passed no resolutions. Good enough?
Perfect.
Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, we will now return to our meeting. We did it in less than a half an hour, so, all right. First matter on is going to be Hampton Racket at Green Hollow. Is the applicant here on that? Britton, is that yours? Okay, sorry, thank you. Okay. And that is going to be, Michael, that's yours. And Tina, take it away.
Thank you, Sam. Good night, everybody. Good evening. This is the site plan special permit modification for the Hampton Racket at Green Hollow Tennis Club. The site is located at 172 Foxgill Road in East Hampton. I'm going to share my screen. Location in a minute. The application is made to modify a site plan special permit approval for 172 Buckskill Road in Wayne-Scott. The modification is to construct 4 padel courts to replace existing tennis courts. Approval for a site plan special permit was issued in February 28, 2018. That approval legalized a number of already built structures on the site and a tennis camp use, and classified the site as a semi-public facility. The scope of work included construction of grass parking areas, removal of a sand pit, concrete walkways, gravel parking, and relocation of an existing shed. The approval was issued in 2018, and there's been several extensions of time since then. So one of the questions this evening is just how the construction is proceeding, if at all. To provide context. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. It's late in the evening, so I will try. Is that something better? Okay. The site is zoned A3 residential and within the Suffolk County Groundwater Protection Area and the Suffolk County Pine Bands region. And it is surrounded by residential properties on the west, south, and east, and the Long Island Railroad to the north. The last certificate of occupancy is from 1995. To go through the items for discussion reviewed in the memo, just noting that as a semi-public facility in a residential zone, the site is subject to double setbacks. Several of the structures on the site don't comply with that. However, they are not encroaching further into property lines. Just wanted the board to be aware that those are standards that exist for this type of use in this location. Regarding parking, I'm going to bring up the survey and zoom in a little bit. Most of the improvements that you see here were approved during the 2018 site plan special permit application. The changes that are at issue are centered in this zone. So the application proposes to replace existing tennis courts with 4 padel courts. The issue associated with that becomes parking. In previous applications, we have applied the parking rate for a tennis club to padel, as it is a similar use with a similar number of players. And we, in applying that here, note that there could be a net increase in parking. One of the reasons that the memo doesn't detail that exactly is because the number of courts that exist is currently unclear. There are 13 courts approved on the CO, And I'll go back to the aerial imagery for a second. It's not that clear from this aerial imagery, but clearer aerial imagery shows that there are 13 courts, but there appear to be some additional courts that we did want to understand what the usage of those are. On the survey, this court here that I'm waving my arrow on appears to be a tennis court. I'm not positive it's being used that way, so we just would like the applicant to update the proposed site plan with the accurate number of courts and the number of parking spaces proposed in each of the parking areas. There are several parking areas peppered throughout the site, so we'd just like that clarified. Regarding the next item, lighting, there was no note of lighting in the proposed application. Did want to check whether or not lighting was being changed or modified, and if so, have included the lighting standards. Regarding the aesthetics and how the courts will look, the applicant didn't provide any renderings or elevations showing the nature of the padel courts. We would like those submitted for the board's review to discuss the appearance of the structures. We did note that in the 2018 condition of approval, there was a landscape and revegetation plan. We didn't seem to find that in the file, so we're reminding the applicant that that matter is outstanding. In conclusion, we would just like the number of courts, parking spaces modified, the parking calculations added to the plan, and that really concludes my comments.
Very well. Does the applicant wish to be heard on this?
Good evening, Chairman Kramer, members of the board. I'm Britton Bistrian here representing Green Hollow Tennis Club, Inc. I'm joined by Tiffany Scarlato, who's the land use attorney for the owners. I'm not certain how many people were on the board the last time we were here. Maybe nobody, actually. We were here from maybe 2013 through 18 for this one, so it was a long haul. I do want to identify that this is a modification application, so I feel like it should be a rather brief review. It is a complicated site and it's a busy survey, and I understand there's not as much familiarity because there was a duration of time that has passed, even with the planning department. So I thought I would try and begin with just the scope of what you're looking at as the modification. That consists of 2 tennis courts being converted into 4 padel courts within the existing fencing enclosure of the tennis court. So the visual impact is none. It's courts within an existing enclosure. The courts, they're exactly as they exist now. Site plan approval was issued in November 2019. A neighbor subsequently filed an Article 78. This is to tie into what the delay was, against the town and the property owner. We litigated that. They appealed 3 times the higher courts, and that
Was that specifically for padel courts?
the original site plan approval was an Article 78 was brought against the town as well as the applicant, and appealed. And Tiffany can speak to this. It's obviously a little bit outside my realm, except for I lived through it, and that only got completed in 2022, completely discharged. So the advice at that time was any resources or energy extended into the property could extend damages or fruitless until the court had resolved the issue. So that was the delay on why the site plan approval action wasn't taken until recently. The work under the 2019 site plan, which was mostly, it was initially from legacy issues on the property. So 50% of them were built even when we were in front of the planning board. As of today, it's 90% complete, that 2019. And the only things that aren't complete are seasonal dependent. And it's the last probably 10% of revegetation, painting parking lot lines, which we can't do in the winter. So that site plan, if you walk the site right now, is constructed. There are 13 tennis courts on the site. That's in conformance with the site plan approval, both the recent one in 2018 and the prior one in the 90s. 2 of those are being converted to Padel courts. There's no lighting, no landscaping, no other modifications proposed with this, what's in front of you today. The 2018 site plan approval, as I've sort of alluded to, was a pretty exhaustive review and a comprehensive approval, which approved all the structures the way they exist. It was tested in court, and the building permit was issued for the site plan as it was approved. And construction is effectively complete, and Tiffany can address, this further in terms of vesting. There are some questions about setbacks of items that were already approved by this board and already have a building permit and already built. So I don't think we can, look back at that. I think the board's jurisdiction should be the conversion of the 2 courts to the 4 Padel. 52 parking spaces, this is in the planning board file, 52 parking spaces were approved in 2018. 60 parking spaces are shown on the plan in front of you. The net difference is 8, which is 2 additional courts. So that's compliant. The Walbridge plan bears the same title as the previous site plan, so I'm not certain if that was a holdover in the memo of what was titled incorrectly. And then the last issue was about ARB approval, but Town Code Section 255-730A3 under site plan review exempts tennis courts from ARB approval under site plan. So I don't think that is relevant here. In summation, I can't find anything in this modification application that is deficient, that you couldn't move this to a public hearing. The parking is compliant, the ARB is not relevant, and the site is completely built, no lighting, no landscaping, it's all under the previous approval. So we're happy to address any questions regarding that. And if there's legal questions, obviously Tiffany can step up. And regarding the landscaping plan not being in the file, this was sort of in the error when the file was maybe misplaced, but we did get the planning board issued an approval to issue a building permit, and that letter wouldn't have come from the planning board had your file not been complete. So if you need another copy of that, I can harvest it from our 2018, but there is a letter in the file approving this project for a building permit. So all the conditions of your previous approval were met.
Britton, I have a question. I'm not familiar with the Dow, but I heard somewhere that, and I may be wrong, but there walls that are built surrounding the court itself?
Right. It's sort of a cross between it's like tennis meets racquetball. I'm not an active Padel player. I have played it before, but you can use it's glass. The walls are glass, and they are within the tennis court, and that you can use the walls.
You play off the wall.
Thank you.
So do the walls exist now?
Yeah.
That you'll be playing off? The walls exist now?
This modification has not been built. No.
Right. So I think that was what
I mean, they exist on the site. They're stockpiled on the site, but they're not constructed.
Right, so that's like a structural change to the tennis court area. That was why the aesthetics question was raised, just there's a new structure that's not there now.
It's just 4 glass walls.
And there's
For each court.
Correct.
So that's 4
Within
times.
the chain link fence with the green mesh of the tennis courts.
Right, so on each Padel court is self-contained with clear like plexi or glass or whatever it is on the actual court itself that's already there, right?
The Padel courts are not constructed.
Not yet.
The tennis
but
court is
that's-
there,
yeah,
yes.
Theoretically.
Within the bounds of
would
the
be
Within the bounds of
same,
the
yeah.
fenced-in tennis enclosure that exists today.
Yeah.
There will be four Padel courts with 4 glass walls.
no roof, right?
No.
So just clarification on the number of walls. So it's going to be 4 courts right next to each other. I assume they're going to be sharing a wall, north,
no,
south,
if you-
east, west.
If you look at
Or does each court have its own set of 4 walls?
correct, 1, 2,
So that's 16 walls.
They're clear plexiglass. Yeah, they're clear plexi.
Okay.
They're not, and how tall are they? Yeah, that was my.
How tall?
I can look into that. I'm gonna Google it. It's over my head, under a tennis court
So to
enclosure.
speak.
I would say, I would guess 8 to 10 feet, but I
That
can,
sounds about right.
We saw renderings of them at law school. They didn't seem overwhelmingly huge or anything.
It's lower than the tennis court fencing that exists,
Right,
for
right.
certain.
I would say so, yeah.
Michael?
Thank you. And thank you for answering all those questions in the agenda. So my question really kind of isn't about what was in the agenda. My question is, can you articulate the difference in noise level from playing padel from playing tennis? Because we've had cases out here where people get all upset about padel, and it is, and my understanding.
Pickleball is the loud one. Padel is enclosed, so the noise is, you're in a box.
But you still have, the top is open, and you still have, I read that it's like 99% doubles padel, so you have 4 people in that enclosure, right? And I'm concerned about the noise level or the difference in noise from a tennis match with a padel match. Because you have, like you said, you have residences not too far away.
Right. The closest neighbor is the Long Island Railroad. We're definitely quieter than they are. I can't speak to the noise coefficient of a padel court intelligently.
Is it flat?
Okay.
What's the ground surface? Is it the tennis court surface?
Yeah.
So it's not like you put a wood platform down?
No, it's this.
Which, is that pickleball?
That's paddle.
That's paddle tennis, which is a
So
whole
paddle tennis, pickleball, padel,
Pickleball
all
has a
3
wood
different
racket.
Different
And
sports.
pickleball's
Pickle has a
ball.
wood racket.
Pickleball is the one that has like a wiffle ball.
Yeah, and
And
that makes.
that's the loud
super
one,
noise.
that they're changing the codes and making them have greater Sagaponic has.
Is that what the village tried to put in?
Yes,
Yes.
pickleball.
That's pickleball.
Okay.
It's a soft ball,
And I-
like a tennis ball.
Padel
Padel
is,
is, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a smaller tennis ball, I think. Yeah.
And is it a stringed racket? Or a,
no, it's like
No, wood
it's like a ping pong mallet.
It's like a weird, combination
But it's
of all
soft.
sorts.
Like a
It's a
wooden
softball, so it's not
paddleball? Like a paddle
I mean, I
ball
think
match?
tennis courts
Yeah.
are noisy
Well,
too.
squash is
I mean,
a
I
net.
don't know.
Squash is, oh, right, never
Squash is a
mind.
little
So
net.
it's, as far as I know, it is.
So there's one more question generally. Has there been any history of complaints about tennis and the noise coming from tennis from their neighbors, from the residences nearby?
No, the complaints that were the inception of the Article 78 do not relate to noise.
What was the Article 78 about then? Everything, right?
Everything.
Yeah, of course.
Completely.
Identifiers.
She was. She knows. She knows the
Orlando,
drill.
45 Division Street for the applicant, Sag Harbor. The Article 78 was really based in the approval that the board issued in 2018, and it really harkened back to the original approval from 1995, and it was compliance issues with that approval and in conjunction with just a general objection to this board's approval of the site plan.
Site plan.
We dealt with a lot of setback issues, which again, they appealed all the way to the Court of Appeals and were declined. So we got all the way to the end on it, unfortunately, but so all of those issues are resolved.
So this board was the respondent in that Article 78?
Yes.
So the courts are going to be in the middle of these and abutting the railroad? Is that where they're going to be?
Correct, where the cursor is.
And the
That
residence
looks like
is,
an
that's a
open
residence where your cursor is now, and that's the other.
Just north of the railroad or?
Residence is here
Houses.
and
What
here.
is that structure?
This court is.
That's where they're going to be.
Yeah, this is, I'll bring a newer, I just have a screenshot I can share of a newer one, and that's where, you got, does that make it a little better?
What's the big structure on the other side of the railroad track on the left?
The left?
Oh, more,
Buckskill.
Yeah.
that's Buckskill.
More tennis courts.
More tennis
That whole
courts.
road
Well,
has
they
like 3
were.
clubs.
Yeah.
No, there's like
And then
3
I
tennis
A bunch
clubs.
of them, and there's the other.
So it's just the 2 residences that abut your client's property. 3 residences.
Well,
Well, north of the railroad are several houses.
It's on the other side of the
Buckskill
railroad.
tennis court.
There's a bigger
And
buffer
Buckskill Park.
between those though, and the
On the
courts, I
left
would
side,
say.
it's
The railroad itself is probably like 60 feet.
And they're there already, I mean, for the most part.
Yeah. the house is pretty far away.
Right, keep going.
I have no further questions.
No further comments.
No further comments
Okay.
or questions.
Anybody else? No questions?
No?
Shall we
I
run
think
through
you
the
answered.
questions of the planning board? Should the applicant submit additional information regarding parking, including existing number of spaces, parking calculations, and demonstration of how new demand will be managed?
It sounds like you have 60.
We have 52 in the approved site plan and 60 on the site plan that you have in front of you.
So I would like to say it's standard for parking calculations to be on the survey. And the court number here, like this right here in the middle is labeled as a tennis court, but here it doesn't look like a tennis court. So I'd prefer to have a clean record for the modification moving forward. The original site plan included parking calculations and the number of parking and tennis courts. I don't see a reason why you can't do that.
The survey so we stayed consistent with the survey that was approved in 2018. The survey is exactly the same, less the additional parking. So those courts are not numbered. Those parking spaces are not numbered. And I'm only pointing that out.
There's 28 grass spaces here and there's 14 grass spaces here. And the only reason I'm asking is this tennis court doesn't.
Right, so that was part of the site plan approval. If you go back in that record, that court was discussed at great length. It is a child's camp court and it has 4 children's courts on it.
Okay, so then that counts.
And the
for
parking
one court.
coefficient, if you looked in the file, didn't get changed for that one because it's for the children's camp use. So they didn't say that the parking would need to change.
Counted separately? The children's campus was counted, parking was counted separately?
No, it was in discussions with the planning board, they counted that as a four parking space court. They counted it as a tennis court, and it has the ability to be converted to the 4 courts for children under the age of 5.
All right, okay.
Because the purpose of the site plan in 2018 was adding the semi-public facility use of a camp.
Okay, understood. Okay.
Okay, yeah, no, I
Good with that?
didn't see that. I still don't see a reason that the parking calculations can't be here.
Well, I guess if I could just request that if the board is sufficient with the site plan as laid out, we can easily add the number of spaces and we can label the courts. We couldn't get a CO if we had more than 13. We didn't label them previously. We're happy to label them, but I'd ask that we don't delay a public hearing to label parking numbers and parking courts.
You can get that in quickly enough, can't you? That shouldn't delay. I mean, do we have a resolution on this tonight?
No.
All right, so, you can get it all together before the resolution.
Yeah, just as long as I don't have to come back and stand up here to say that we can count to 60 and.
I think we can agree to that.
We're all on the
Okay.
same page on that.
I just want to make sure, because sometimes you submit it and then you put it back on
I
the.
do like to see it.
We like to count.
We can
together.
Play hockey on Wednesday nights.
Submitting that, how's that?
What else are you gonna do? What else are you gonna say? All right. Should the applicant provide information on the construction of is it Padel?
It's Padel.
Thank you.
Padel.
Padel courts that show their proposed appearance?
I think we know the appearance. I mean, I remember them, from.
For the file, should we have something?
Well, do you need it for the file? Is that something that we need?
We usually have something that shows the proposed
it's gonna look
structure.
Yeah,
Yes.
We should.
So
Yeah.
in this case, this is a weird case where it's just glass walls. I'll admit, I haven't run into something so de
You
minimis.
must have a rendering what it's gonna look
sheet or
like.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rendering.
So submitted to your file, was that not sufficient? Could you pull that up?
We have,
It was in another language. Like French, maybe?
Spanish.
It is a French.
Spanish?
Spanish.
It was in a,
Spanish. Espanol.
so I have to go, there was like a letter that was attached. Is that what you're referring to?
no, there was a diagram that was written in Spanish.
And I don't recall seeing that.
Is this? No.
Are you guys finding it?
Well, the letterhead from Padel Dallas.
That's all I saw was a letter
They're in
from,
Valencia.
yes, a letter from the manufacturer, but there was no specifications or anything.
That's the part numbers, but it doesn't.
About a wind
That'd
rating.
be easy to pull up.
Yes, I was just gonna say, it's easy to
It'd be
get.
really easy to go on the
Picture
internet.
shouldn't be-
Yeah, it doesn't, there was something submitted, so I can resubmit it.
All right.
Maybe it wasn't in the digital file, which is what we go to. Sometimes there's differences between the paper and the digital.
So I'm happy to submit 10 copies of the Rive survey and the Padel if we can have staff approve it and not have to
Yeah, if it's good
review it
with them,
again.
it's gonna be.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
It doesn't require our review. All right, and the final question for the night is, should the applicant clarify if new site lighting is proposed? Is there
There's no site lighting.
There you are, so,
All right, clarified.
there you go. It's been clarified, thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
all right, we'll see you next time when there will be a resolution.
We'll schedule the public hearing.
Right, well, resolution schedule a public hearing, yes. There you go. All right, very well. Next is the Thomas pre-preliminary, this is a preliminary subdivision review. So as we have with the site plan pre-preliminaries, we will, this is water, I want you to know.
Pre-preliminary.
We will all provide input to the applicant with respect to the proposed project. And I'm sorry, this is.
I'm covering
Jen.
for Dan.
You're covering for Dan, very good, okay. On this one and the next one,
Yeah,
very well, okay.
She covered for Will on the first one.
I covered.
No.
She's been cheating all around here.
Okay, so this is the pre-preliminary subdivision initial evaluation for the Thomas application located at 50 Sayers Path in Wainscott. The application is made to subdivide an approximately 1.5 acre property having frontage on Sayers Path in Wainscott into 2 individual lots, one of which is proposed to take access from an existing curb cut onto Sayers Path, and the other is supposed to take access from a proposed access easement. The applicant has submitted 3 separate options for the planning board's consideration and a narrative providing some context on why the subdivision is proposed. Currently on the site, there are 2 existing single-family structures. There's a cottage closest to the frontage with Sayers Path and a single-family home in the center of the lot almost. Both of those structures appear on the property's current certificate of occupancy. The site is zoned a residence. It's located in the groundwater zone 5 and is surrounded on 3 sides by the agricultural overlay district. Regarding the issues for discussion in the memo, the project is an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA and the Chapter 128 of the Town Code. The planning board, if they decide to move forward with the application upon formal submission, an EAF would be required. And the planning board would request lead agency. Regarding the subwaiver, so this has been submitted as a pre-preliminary submission, and the purpose of that is to examine alternate opportunities for subdivision and allow the planning board to give feedback to the applicant prior for the applicant proceeding with the official submission. The applicant submitted 3 scenarios for the planning board to review, and there was a table in the memo that summarized them, and I'll show the different surveys now. Basically, each scenario would create at least one substandard lot with respect to the zoning requirements. The zoning minimum lot area in a resident zone is 40,000 square feet. And in each of these scenarios, at least one lot smaller than that, or perhaps 2 would be created. So this is scenario 1. Each of the scenarios basically just moves the lot line, kind of a little bit here or there, and creates varying degrees of nonconformities. So here's scenario 1. Here's scenario 2. They move the lot line a little bit closer to the single-family dwelling in the rear of the lot. And then scenario 3, which moves the lot line and makes a really much smaller substandard lot fronting Sayers Path, and then a larger one in the rear of the lot that's compliant.
How substandard are the substandard lots?
So in proposal 1, I'll go back to proposal 1. In proposal 1, lot 2 is compliant with lot area, and lot 1 is 22,720 square feet. So that's like a 13, I can't do math in my head, please don't ask me to, but it's not 40,000. Lot scenario 2 has 2 substandard lots, Lot 2 is only substandard by, 1,500 square feet. And the lot fronting Sayers Path is closer to 14,000 square feet substandard. And in the third scenario, lot 2, again, is larger than the minimum lot area in the zoning district, and lot 1 is significantly substandard by 33,000 square feet. And again, forgive my math. But
No,
that
close
wasn't
enough.
Close enough.
estimating, thank you. One of the things we recommend the applicant discuss with the board is their rationale for these different scenarios. There wasn't a lot of information on how they came to these different configurations, and we'd like to hear that. We'd also like to hear a little bit more about what's driving the proposal. There wasn't a lot of information. It described that it would allow the family to keep ownership of the lot, but it wasn't clear how that kind of juxtaposed against the existing condition. In terms of the recommendations, the planning department notes there are already 2 existing single-family homes on this one lot. That is an atypical situation, something that you would not build this today, but it is an existing condition. So if the planning board were to move forward with the subdivision, it wouldn't be increasing density, you would just be recognizing an existing condition. However, future planning for the area is an important consideration. Regarding how the structures may change over time, may be something the planning board would want to consider. And if, they did come under separate ownership, how that may, change folks' objectives with respect to these dwellings. And if the planning board would want to condition any consideration of these with considerations like that in mind. In terms of the proposals, the only thing we would say was really 2 things. One, you might be able to position the lot line to create kind of a minimum nonconformity in each case. I don't know that either of the 3 of these proposals does that yet, so the applicant might want to continue to consider that. But really the primary consideration is whether or not the planning board thinks this is an appropriate subdivision, I think, at this time. We did put some other considerations if this were to move forward to the preliminary phase, the information that would need to be addressed on future maps, site access. The planning board always requires common driveways. It's in the code as kind of a guiding force. We would need the site design to be reviewed by the town engineer. We would need scenic easements or reserve areas allotted for, and there really not a lot of space for those types of features because the cottage in the frontage of the property is so close to the existing right-of-way of Sayers Path. The clearing would also be a consideration, and perhaps, the easements, the site is very open to Sayers Path, providing additional buffer if the planning board move forward would be something we'd recommend. And there was no topography on the map, so that's something that's also standard. But really, to conclude, those were for future planning, and we wanted just to focus the discussion on the purpose of the pre-preliminary submission, which is the analysis of the options presented to the board and whether or not to proceed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guidance especially, Mr. Crouch. Yes.
Good evening, Thomas Crouch, attorney representing Stephen Thomas and Holly Whitmore, for the applicants on this matter.
Welcome back.
Yeah. So you guys are still having fun. So I brought printouts of the zoning map. I don't know if it's better to display it on the screen, or I brought one that I can distribute for everyone. It's relevant to our rationale for doing this. There you go. So the highlighted lot is our property, and it's A zone, as you can see.
If you tomorrow submit these to the planning department. Planning boards.
So if you look at the zoning map here, across the street are all B residents. The highlighted lot is an A residence, and then on the same side of the street, going down Sayers Path, are all A residence lots that are all undersized for zoning. So if you look, just going from 50, going south on Sayers, it's 60 is a 23,000 square foot lot, 70 is a 32,000 square foot lot, 74 is a 14,000 square foot lot, 84 is an 18,000 square foot lot, 88 is a 17,000 square foot lot, 94 is an 11,000 square foot lot, and 100 is 12,000, 104 is 12,000, and then 110 finally is 1.5 acres, about the same size as ours. So it's kind of interesting. It's a A-zoned street where almost none of the lots are A compliant with the lot size. So the reason I went through that is our preference out of these three options. We submitted three because we want to get the board's feedback, but our preference would be proposal number 3. And if you look at the survey for number 3, reason for that is it basically creates where the lot line for lot 1 would line up pretty perfectly with what's already there as far as the neighbor and going down Sayers Path. So it'd be pretty consistent with what's in the neighborhood, recognizing that we would need a significant variance to do that. One thing that was in the memo, it seemed, I think the planning department indicated that proposal 2 was their choice. I think the only problem with that from our perspective is that requires 2 variances instead of 1. So I think, that makes our climb at the zoning board a little steeper. So, we wanted to come here tonight and get the board's feedback on each of the options. We're trying to decide whether to move forward with this. So anything about what conditions would be you think would be necessary, what elements of a complete application. My clients are here and they're going to speak to the need and, what in the history of the property. I think obviously what we have going for us here is that it's a legally pre-existing 2 principal structure property, which is not common. And, if it were made into separate lots, it would be compliant with the B zoning across the street and the undersized A zoning going down the street. So, and, also the fact that if they have to sell the property, it's a large property that, would probably get turned into something different than a modest cottage and a modest 3-bedroom house that's there now. So,
So did the A zoning come afterwards? Was it just these houses were being made and then at one point they just made it A zoning? I mean,
That was my question too, for all the smaller lots, were they pre-existing kind of?
Yeah.
yeah, I think so, because I mean, these houses were built, I think in the 50s.
Well before zoning.
Mid to late 50s.
Yeah, so
then the area was upzoned a little bit and created bigger lots.
yeah,
Okay.
so if you want to come up now and we can talk about the history and the reason why you're wanting to pursue this.
Good evening. Yeah, my name is Steve Thomas. My sister and I co-own the property left to us from, by our family, born and raised there. The property is, as you see it on those maps, is the way it's been since I can remember, like at 3 or 4 years old. And nothing has changed except for, improvements on the houses themselves. That's the only thing that's changed. The driveway is the same spot, both driveways. And the reason, we're pursuing this is really not for my sister and myself. We're not selling it. We don't want to sell it. We want to keep it in the family. But she has her kids and grandkids. I have my kids and grandkids. And we're trying to divide it up. So one half would have that half, one half would have the other. And so there wouldn't be down the road, with the kids and grandkids if someone didn't see eye to eye about keeping or getting rid of the property. And like Tom said, the other properties that border us and across the street are similar in size. Some have less frontage, some have a little bit more. And depth-wise and stuff, they're, pretty similar. And the house was, when my parents, did it back, the cottage was actually moved there. It used to be up on Montauk Highway. I don't know if any of you remember where, I don't remember the antique store that is now there. I can't think of the name, but it used to be Ted Meyer's Antiques.
Was it Camp? Camp, was it?
No, it was,
No, it was right on the,
Titmer?
just before Poxabog,
yeah.
where that antique store is there.
Wyeth is
We're
Wyeth.
Wyeth, yes.
Yeah, well, what, yeah.
Mr. Hand had a appliance repair shop, and that's where that building came from. Part of that building came from there, and they put that there so they have a place to live while the main house was being built. And like I said, that was I was born in 56, and I've been here my whole life. So that was from then to the, mid 50s, the late 50s, that those houses were in existence there. I'm just trying to think of anything else. No, that's really it. It was really just for the, if you say the convenience for our kids and grandkids down the road, we're trying to get it divided. That was all. And we don't want to leave, Holly, like I said, Holly and I aren't getting rid of the house. We don't want to. We want to keep it. And and I think our kids would too, but you never know with families and stuff down the road. So.
Indeed.
So Steve, there's no immediate plan to build a different house on either
Oh,
one?
no, not at all. It was just to keep as is. Yeah. Because the front house has been the front cottage is basically brand new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the other house it's been, updated and stuff like that, but yeah. All right.
Very good. We'll start the conversation with Jen.
Yeah, I thank you guys very much for presenting. I appreciate the history of the houses in the area and the family. I think what jumps out at me is that I think subdividing a lot of this size maybe sets a precedent that we should discuss, right? It would create undersized lots in an area where just up, to the north, rather than going south, those lots are substantially bigger. If you look at this zoning map. And I think, to Sharon's point, that those other smaller lots were probably kind of, pre-existing before zoning. So that's what my, first initial gut feeling is. And I also think that we're probably not your biggest hurdle. I think the ZBA would be, getting those variances would be a really hard.
Tom actually said that.
Yeah. So,
Well, yeah, like I said, we just wanted to pursue it to see. I've said this to Tom, I said this to my sister. I'm too simplistic in my thinking. The houses have been there for, like I said, from the mid-50s, just the way they are, with improvement. They're totally separate, nothing relies on each other. They have their own utilities, water, septic systems, and but that was the sole purpose, was to make it simpler for our kids. It's not like I also said to Tom, and it's not a terrible burden to own a piece of property that our parents had right there in Wainscott.
Yeah.
It's it's a nice burden.
Why don't we let? We'll go around.
And I'm curious to hear what.
We're going, well, it's a pre-preliminary, so we're going to go around the table, but.
Perfect.
You are the leader of the discussion.
that would be my, my initial reaction is that I think it's a bad precedent to set. And I do think that the lots to the north, as I mentioned, are substantially larger. And then what's to stop someone, the next property up from deciding that they want to subdivide for other reasons? Maybe not as, as honorable as the reasons for this family.
Bruce?
Yeah, I have a question. The front yard easement, if we do require that, does that square footage get removed from the front lot total square footage? And my question is, make it even smaller.
Right. What would be the answer to that?
No, I mean, it's still, it counts toward the size of the lot. It's just, it's the usable area for building is obviously smaller, but yeah, it's still, owned by the applicant.
The lot size stays the same, I guess what he's saying, but they just can't use it.
They can't use it. So, and the other question is, if we do an easement to the back lot, that 20-foot easement is going to reduce the front lot as well, right?
How so?
Well, we have to get access to the back lot.
Okay, all right.
So if we do a common driveway, that 20-foot gets removed from.
And it doesn't get counted.
Doesn't
as
get
part of
counted.
the,
So that makes
square
it-
footage. It makes it
that would make it smaller.
even more non-conforming.
Correct.
That is correct. Yeah. An access easement can't get counted as part of lot area, and we're going to talk about this later too. Whether or not a scenic easement gets counted is something I think we're disputing right now. I mean, my understanding is it doesn't get counted, but I think that there might be precedent that we have counted it, so.
Well, I think in access easement, it just doesn't get counted toward the back, like a flag lot, you don't count the flag, the pole.
No.
But it does get removed from the front lot. It would get removed.
The common driveway.
So in the
Common driveway would
subdivision
get-
code,
yeah.
And then when you start worrying about setting a precedent, the number becomes even smaller and smaller. So if you were setting a precedent with it's 1,500 feet or something that you might be willing to allow, all of a sudden it goes to 8,000 square feet, or whatever. I'm making up numbers.
Yeah, I mean, the subdivision code is up on the screen right now, and it's pretty clear that total horizontal area, right, contained by any boundaries excludes underwater land, any flagpole, street, right-of-way or access easement, or other easement prohibiting the erection of buildings, which a scenic easement does. The issue is there is a conflict with this definition and the definition in 255-120, which is the lot area definition in the rest of the zoning code. So that's an issue that we'll acknowledge right now. We have been taking it out of lot area recently, however.
Anything else? No. Michael?
I sympathize greatly with the applicants. I am in Wainscots, and and I have a modest house on a relatively large parcel of land in an A residence. And if the ZBA approves you, I'm going to be next in line.
Just real quick on that whole precedent issue, does your property have two CO'd principal residences?
No, but I know another residence in Wainscot that does have that, and I'm curious how that can be addressed.
Yeah.
That it's two separate buildings on one lot, and I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I'm very curious about it because it seems a very similar situation.
That's kind of from my perspective, that's the distinguishing feature of this. I would agree, if this were a vacant parcel, obviously, everyone would be lining up for that, or if it only had one, but the two distinct principal residences really make this a, unique situation that, precedent wise.
Well, my argument is the same as theirs. I have 3 kids. I want to split it up for them, right? That would be my argument.
I think they're relying on the idea that there's actually houses built.
Well,
you only have one house on your.
Yeah, I can build it fast. I can build it so fast.
Oh, sorry, I'll let you.
But these are CO'd, Michael.
Yeah, these are CO'd houses.
That's interesting. That is interesting. Yeah.
No, I too am sympathetic, and I think I think what Jen said, I think your ZBA is going to be a huge hurdle. And then I think we have to be careful with the idea that if down the road your kids do decide to sell it, what, that small lot all of a sudden could become double the size of a house on it, it's just, so those are the kinds of things we have to think about, is more the future of what could happen to that. When you subdivide it, now that's going to stand alone, and obviously it would have to come in front of it. Well, it doesn't have to come in front of us if they conform to setbacks and all of that. So that would be my biggest concern, and I completely sympathize. We're all struggling for housing out here, and it's just, at least I know I am, but, and it's tough, and I understand trying to separate the two families. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with what Jen said, and I think what everyone else is saying, that we don't want to set a precedent. However, I would be amenable to allowing this if we, I think it was mentioned in the TAM that if there was a covenant that you would agree to where you could never expand the homes that are on there right now or build any more than what's there now, I don't see how that would, that would definitely would take care of the precedent situation. So that's the avenue that I would go down. If you would agree not to be able to expand those homes, I would have no problem. As far as the buffer for the scenic easement, I realize the problem is the home, the cottage, is too close to the property line. But what if you had it so that it started right after the cottage and went down the property line? It doesn't necessarily have to be because that would be like 90% of the property. You would still create that buffer. Couldn't we do that?
You could. I mean, you don't want any structures within 10 feet of the easement, right? It's usually there's a buffer between an easement and a structure.
Yeah.
You could use the rear of the lot as scenic easement as well if the board thought that was appropriate. Usually one of the reasons they're mapped is to preserve the scenic quality of the neighborhood. So if you put it in the back, either scenic quality or habitat.
Yeah, but does it do that if it's in the back?
That's what I'm saying. If you put it anywhere aside from the frontage of the lot, the utility of it may diminish.
The other issue on the easement counting as part of the lot size, I came across the same conflict in the two code sections. There's something that had nothing to do with planning board. But the answer that I got was that if it's a public easement, that is, if the homeowner granted an easement on the property to the town, for instance, then it would not count as part of the lot size. And the issue that I was concerned with when I was looking into this had to do with GFA. How much. So if it's a public easement, you would count that easement in terms of what you could build on that lot. So usually the formula is 10% of the lot area plus 1,600 square feet. So if you don't count the easement, then you have a smaller house that you can build. If you do count the easement, then you can build a much bigger house. So the argument or the logic that was given to me was that no one would ever grant an easement to a public entity if it would diminish the size of the house that they would be able to build. However, a private easement is different. If you have like in this case, it would be a private easement, right? So anyway, that's.
Yeah, was that from?
How do you define a private easement?
So that I don't know.
That's the term that's used in.
That's in the
lot area
that's in the other definition, right? So the definition in the subdivision code doesn't go into that. It just says.
The subdivision code says anything that you can't build on, which means any kind of easement.
Exactly.
But in this one, the one that you printed in the TAM.
Yes.
It just says private easement.
Yes.
It only excludes a private easement.
Yes.
So what's a private easement? The private easement would be,
Yeah,
Yeah, like generally between neighbors or
Yeah,
like
between
electric.
neighbors,
Maybe
right.
like
Which is what
electric
this would be,
utility,
right?
Yeah, or
You
like.
could have a private scenic
Not
easement.
build something over a certain height to block a view. You
Yeah,
see them with
exactly,
those.
Yeah.
Slopes, right? Sometimes we easement on slopes.
Sometimes people want to maintain trees between their properties, so they enter into a private easement to keep those trees.
And I don't think any, the code is written that a 10% reserve area is required. So it's not like people are volunteering these, because I don't think anybody would do that, right? It's required as part of the subdivision process, which is why it's been a tool. And in the subdivision code, it's this language, but I think what, Nancy and I were talking before, another applicant kind of alerted us to like what they felt was a discrepancy. I think we have to take this offline and get a town policy kind of together, rather than discussing it too much. We might need a building code interpretation. We're gonna look at precedent. So I don't know that we're gonna be able to resolve it tonight, I'm sorry.
So anyway, just to recap, I think it's important that we have that buffer, that we have that easement, whatever
Yes.
way we can. And also, I think if we have a covenant, I have no problem. If we have a covenant, to me, it doesn't matter the configurations of the lot, because it's gonna be the same thing, no matter how you slice it up. You still can't expand on those buildings. And I'm just curious, I have a question about this to the owners. If you're splitting it up and the lot sizes that you request are 16,000 square feet for the cottage.
I thought of this too.
And then,
Which family gets which?
How is that going to be equal among your kids versus your kids?
That's a Thanksgiving dinner
something, right.
conversation for many years from now. We love, get better.
I thought of that and I was like, I'll leave it be. That's between them.
No one thought about that.
Like, who gets the big house?
You don't have to involve us in that.
No, I mean, we thought about it, but our primary thing was just to be able to
Split it.
give each family.
Yeah.
And right now, if it did happen, right now, my sister would get the back lot, I would get the front lot. Just, because we don't care. If you look at it, they're both, even if it did happen, they're both very valuable lots.
No question.
And right
Yeah.
now, my sister and I both, and it's a good problem to have, but neither one of us can buy each other out. And that was the starting point.
Yeah.
In other words, this whole thing.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
So with the covenant thing, just to get back to that, that's something we can.
We can recommend that.
I mean, I think we
recommend,
have to get, this is
require.
going to go to the zoning board.
Yeah.
This
These
is
guys
going to go to the
have to
zoning
deal
board.
with it, but
Yeah.
And I mean, that would be something I would offer them too,
Yeah.
if you're willing to do that.
Don't you think the zoning board would put that into consideration?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but so that's for
totally.
them to
Yeah.
offer that to
Yeah,
them, Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
a great
Let's see
solution,
if we-
sorry, go ahead.
A question before I give my comments. The lot to the east, right behind this, what it looks like is a wooded landlocked lot? What-
No.
To the
No.
west.
I mean, I don't.
I'm sorry, to the west.
The
to the west.
A5 lot that you're looking at?
It's a
No, it looks like it's a
buildable lot.
small lot. It's in the A2 zone.
Oh.
The one to the rear of the.
That right there.
property?
Yeah.
Does that look like just a wood lot, kind of, right?
Well, I think that's part of the
It's just an empty lot.
Whatever is,
It's this guy
reserve
right there.
there.
is that part of the agricultural reserve?
There's not a preserve there.
It's like it's,
That's a buildable
think it
lot.
said it was,
Yeah.
Oh, and they
Empty
take,
buildable
I see now where the access is
We're talking
to
about this
it.
one, right?
Okay.
So what is
It's an empty
that?
buildable lot.
This is
That's an
their.
empty
It's woods.
buildable lot?
Yeah.
It's woods right now, right?
So
know,
somebody
this
is
is,
sitting on it.
Yeah.
Somebody owns it.
Okay.
Okay.
Someone owns it and is sitting on it.
More land right now.
How big is that?
They would share the same.
It doesn't look it's that big.
That borders our property.
Yeah, I think this is in the agricultural overlay. Does that not show on the map? I think it does look to be in it.
It does look to be in the agricultural overlay, yeah.
How do you see that? Where?
The red lines, I think, denote the agricultural
Oh, in this?
overlay, yeah,
Okay.
on this, yeah, not on here.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the GIS data it's showing is like a positive, so. Oh, I don't know where is it
Let's
there?
see now.
All right, I was just curious about that. Yeah, but I think like everyone else, we have this precedent issue here, right? We can't set dangerous precedents for things, but I think the compelling argument here, from my point of view, is number one, there are 2 houses CO'd on the property already, right?
Yes.
And I would think that the best case to the ZBA would be if the front lot sort of conformed, even though it's not in the B resident zone, if it conformed to that size, which is
20,000.
20,
right.
just 20.
There's an opportunity here, I think, even with whatever way the argument about the access easement comes out, I think there's still a way to have 40,000 in the back and 20 in the front, right? And then you'd only need 1 variance. I think that math works. You'd have a conforming lot in the back and only have to go for 1 variance. And I frankly think that they will, this is just my opinion, they'll hear the argument about that lining up with all the other houses that are really B resident sized across from a B resident zone. I mean, I think that they'll be amenable to that discussion, frankly. But I do think that the issue of covenant is also a really great idea, right? To offer that up to limit or, avoid completely changing the scale of the buildings that are on the sites.
Yeah, you see, that's one of the reasons that we're concerned about the subdividing the property is what might happen down the road.
Yeah.
And if you create a 40,000 square foot lot, and now you've created an opportunity, regardless of family, this generation,
Right.
could be 2 generations down, you've got a potential for that lot to all of a sudden have another very large house there, which I'm sure other folks in the area wouldn't particularly like. So the idea of the covenant and restriction to limit the size of the house is a real trade-off, and something that I mean, Lou suggested it, and I haven't heard from everybody, but it sounds like that's something that might,
I think Gina had sort of put it in there, right? You had made some comments about.
It makes sense, perfect sense.
So, but as your counsel said, I think you said that, so if you didn't, we've said it, your real battle is going to be with, not battle, but real issues are going to be with the ZBA.
Yeah.
Because, you are creating a non-conforming lot that's going to have setback issues, but the big issue is getting past the strong policy, with a policy with good reasons against subdividing lots. And maybe the solution is to covenant to keep things as they are.
I think the compelling argument is really.
Oh, that the neighboring lots on Sayers
and across the street, they are literally rezoned, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, I think they might be amenable to the argument that if this was left at 1.25 acres, someone down the road could build a much bigger house.
Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, that's true. If you sell that, that's absolutely right. If you were to sell the lot as is now today, somebody would come in, take down both houses and build a real monster.
I think you could take down I think you could leave the cottage because that doesn't conform to setbacks, but the house, the main house, is in a more conforming location. And I think you could expand on that without having to lose the house. So
it might be a win-win all around.
I think, if you're looking for we're obviously amenable if the ZBA comes back with a positive solution for you, then.
So we talked about.
Well, let me go through the questions. That'll help organize everybody's thinking here and give you a path to go forward to the ZBA. So the questions aren't at the very back, are they?
No, they're page 10.
They're at the end of the memo.
Yes, but then we have all those code provisions there.
Yes.
Does the planning board agree that the subdivision is appropriate?
Could be.
Maybe. Does the planning board feel one alternative is more appropriate than others, or would they like to see alternative lot arrangements?
Ed's alternative.
Well, I think the idea of making that 20,000 is a good.
Like that lot, that one.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And make it B-sized.
Yeah, it takes 20,000.
right,
So making the front one at least 20,000, I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
Does the planning board agree that additional details should be provided pertaining to site access for each parcel proposed with this application? And that's, yes, that's a strong yes. Does the planning board agree that a common driveway should be provided to serve the residential subdivision? Absolutely. Yes. Does the planning board agree that a common driveway should be provided should the, I'm sorry, if, I started off wrong. If the planning board agrees that a common driveway should be provided, should the applicant submit a common driveway plan that shows all pertinent design details? And do bear in mind that those are, important. We run into those, guys. We run into problems with those common driveways all the time with turnaround access and emergency access and things like that.
That's right.
So make sure that if you do that, it's carefully designed. Should the subdivision include mapping of scenic easement or similar mechanism to protect the frontage along Sayers Path? And I think we're all on board with that. Is a revegetation plan required for the scenic easement reserve area to ensure its effectiveness as a vegetative buffer per code requirements?
I think so.
With that, does the planning board agree that additional details should be provided pertaining to the water supply and sanitary systems for the proposed subwaiver? It goes without saying almost. Does the planning board agree that additional details should be provided pertaining to the stormwater drainage for the proposed subdivision, proposed subwaiver? Sorry.
Yes.
We're all in agreement on that. And finally, should the survey be revised to incorporate topographic contours at 2-foot intervals in the United States Coast Guard and Geodetic Survey datum referred to mean sea level? And you're gonna need to do that. If you get there, if you get that far.
Just quick question about the common driveway. So currently the cottage takes off of a driveway, so they would have to give up that driveway and take off of just the one.
Well, if you're gonna separate the lots,
Okay, I just want to make sure they were clear on this. All right, well, thank you.
Small sacrifices.
Thank you, guys.
All this to avoid a partition action 100 years from now, so it's fine.
She's got one question.
Yes.
I just have one.
Your name, please.
Oh, Holly Thomas Whitmore.
Well,
Thank you. I just have one question with the common driveway. Currently, it has a property has 2 driveways, one for the cottage, very short, basically no parking, just a driveway. And then the main driveway for the house. If we were to have a common driveway that's going down the easement, so the north side of the existing property, then it would have to access the cottage, you would have to cut right across all of that land, which is all open, planted, trees and everything. And my question is, to me, it doesn't make any sense to go from a tiny little driveway to a larger driveway that's actually going to bisect your property unless you were able to, at that point, move the cottage.
It's the typical procedure for a subdivision to require a common driveway, and that's because from a planning perspective, it's more appropriate to have only one access from a site onto a public road.
how many curb cuts would there be?
Right now there's 2, right?
There's 2.
And in the future, there would be one. If we follow the typical procedure.
This has been here for 68 years.
Yeah. Get your variance and come back to us.
Thank you.
I'm willing to have that discussion. Let's put it that way.
Down the road.
Okay.
Down the driveway.
Yeah.
I do think from a process perspective, they would need kind of a fully baked preliminary application in order to go to ZBA, so they would need the driveway access worked out. Because I don't think the ZBA would hear it unless the planning board kind of felt it was ready to be before the ZBA. So in that case, I think the driveway issue is
right.
kind of important, yeah.
Well,
We discussed that. Can we look at it on?
Yeah, I'd like to see how driveway,
can you tighten up that picture?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I see the applicant's point. This is a smaller thing. Sayers Path, I do not believe is a heavily trafficked roadway. It's not a county road, but it's not nothing, right? I mean,
No,
so.
it comes off of 27, and if you're going to South Wayne-Scott,
We're going to the beach.
it's one of your three
Okay.
choices.
So the
So-
distance between the cottage and that other driveway that goes to the main house?
So this, is proposed to be moved and like aligned with the northern property line. So, from the property line to the cottage,
We'll go to the farmer's market there soon.
trying to draw a straight line here.
Yeah, so it looks like it's about double the existing area that's being taken up by the cottage driveway right now. If you were to revegetate the cottage driveway right now and create a driveway from the common driveway to the cottage, you would be using twice the area of land.
Yeah.
If it could be covenanted, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Could you put the driveway in the, get rid of where it is now and put it more in the center of the property so that you could just have access like one, although I don't know if
Taking
that's.
down trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could put it here, but then you're really going through this
Yeah.
area of vegetation. Here, you're too close to the cottage, right?
Yeah.
I'd be amenable to the idea of it being covenanted that it remain there as a short driveway.
Right.
It has been there since the 1950s.
I would
I'd leave it.
too. I think it's crazy for them to lose all that.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand
That
it's
just-
convention, but
Yeah.
I know that we have certain standards
Typical
on,
standards, right, but I mean, in
This
a
one- this one's-
situation.
This one,
makes
yeah,
sense.
it doesn't make.
we're carving a lot of new ground here, so.
I know, we're getting less and less comfortable.
It's existing.
It is existing, yeah.
It's not, you're not creating a new subdivision, you're working with something that's existing and it's been used. And didn't we do this with the Conic Land Trust House?
Yeah.
We allowed.
Yeah, that's right, we did,
We allowed
absolutely.
them to keep that little,
Yeah, that
They
little.
did close off the other one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if you were comfortable, then I would say, no expansion of this, right?
No
You don't want it
expansion
to
of the
be-
driveway.
Yeah.
Added into the covenants.
What is it now, gravel
it's
driveway?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm, yeah,
Another CNR,
Yeah.
that's it.
yeah,
Okay, everybody is on
Yes.
board with that?
Very good.
I am.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you. Okay. And if that weren't enough, now we're going to 267 Accabonac Road. Let's go there. Let's do that. We're here for that? Okay, welcome. Okay, Ed, that one's yours. I'm sorry. I looked down at the page and your name jumped up. Four. I thought it was- Okay, Tina, please.
Okay, great, thank you. Let me just bring up the property location. This is the application for 267 Accabonac Road. It is a subdivision waiver located in East Hampton, the hamlet of East Hampton. This application's made to subdivide an approximately 1.2 acre lot having frontage on Accabonac Road into two individual lots, both of which would conform to the minimum lot size in this B residential zoning district. The lot one, and I'll go to the subdivision map. Lot one would be the lot fronting Accabonac and would be approximately 28,000 square feet in size. And the other would be approximately 24,000 square feet in size. The property is currently improved with one single story, single family residence, shed and septic system. All appear to have been approved per the most recent CO on the property from 1979, with the exception of the shed. So that might be something the applicant may want to look into. The location, as I said earlier, is the residence. It is located in the South Fork Special Groundwater Protection Area, a special groundwater and natural resources area. The site is not related to a previous subdivision and is partially cleared already. Regarding the issues for discussion in the memo, pursuant to SECRA, the planning department recommends this is an unlisted action and an environmental assessment form, part 1, should be prepared for the planning board review, and planning board should consider lead agency. The next issue discussed in the memo is that this is an urban renewal map area. So the requested sub-waiver would require an old file map modification. And I'm just going to jump to those maps right now that are upside down for no good reason. So here, this is part of urban renewal map 53. It is parcel 8 in that map. So here's what it looks like in the existing condition. This is a zoom in of what it looks in the existing condition. And the proposed project would modify the map as shown in green with 2 parcels where parcel 8 used to be, and the part of, I think that's Maple Avenue, to be abandoned would be part of the new tax lots. And you can see that on the survey. Oh, that's why these were not all in the same orientation. Sorry, let me just get that to be there. So Maple Drive would be the name of the road that would be abandoned. If the planning board is supportive of the subdivision, the applicant has submitted a UR map modification, and if the planning board is supportive, we would then move forward with presenting that to the town board once we're at that part in the process. Regarding the lot size and zoning requirements, as I said earlier, this would meet the B residential zone requirements. Both lots proposed are greater than 20,000 square feet, which is the minimum lot area. In the memo, we did detail some updates we would like to see to the map, just to ensure that all the dimensional requirements are met. The applicant should confirm lot width is conforming to the B residence zone. The lot area calculations for the survey, and we talked about this earlier, do not discuss if the scenic easement in the frontage of the property is included in the lot area calculations as presented on the survey. In this case, our estimates done after this memo show that the Lot 1 still likely complies with the B residence zone minimum lot area, but that's something we should confirm, because this memo is saying that they should take that out and that it should not be included in the lot area. Regarding access, currently the site, and I'm just going to go to the aerial. Currently the site is served by a single driveway from Accabonac Road. And as you can see there, the proposal here does show a new 20-foot wide access easement to be mapped to provide access to lot 2. And it shows the existing driveway remaining. This is a similar conversation to what we just had. The recommendation in the memo is to require a common driveway to, prevent unnecessary amount of curb cuts on lots, as is consistent with town planning board policy. And then have the access easement share both, be the shared responsibility of both homeowners. I do want to note, it didn't make it into the memo, but the planning board today received a public comment regarding this application. So the public comments in the file, I encourage the applicant to go to the office, or I'll email it to you folks. The public comment was requesting that there be a consideration of a buffer between their property, which is to the south, and this subdivision to, provide a buffer between the new access easement / driveway and the adjacent property owner.
Which property owner was this?
It's right here. This property, I'm sorry, let me go back to the aerial image. You can see it better that way. This property here, and the access easement would be right here with, a new driveway into the back lot.
It's pretty close.
Yeah. And the easement's proposed right on the property line.
The properties that are, could you give that up for a second?
Sure, sorry about that.
I'm sorry. going to the, what would that be, north of that corner lot, there are, what, 3 more houses that buck up against? No, going the other way, south.
Oh, okay, yes, here.
That one, and that one. Those are 3 residences?
Yes.
They're what, 3-acre lots or something?
This is a half acre.
Oh, gosh. Well, bad eye.
Half acre.
I don't do that for a living.
Yeah, I think most of this area here is B-zoned. So the lots in general around this vicinity are 20,000 square feet or more.
So the one that sent the letter, and that's like what, like a quarter-acre lot?
Tiny.
This is a smaller one.
See, if it had been 3 acres. Different concern.
Different story.
0.2 acres. So, you know,
It's a quarter acre.
9,000 square feet.
Small.
So there's not a lot to work with
Right, in terms of buffering.
in terms of buffering, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Sure.
What do you mean there's not a lot?
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of room
To create a buffer.
to create a buffer. They've already got a quarter-acre lot there. So there's,
The buffer they
the
want.
buffer's gonna be on the other side. I
Yeah.
recognize that. So it's not like, put up the buffer, there's only a quarter acre of land
That's being
that's
affected.
being affected, yeah.
But it can only be requested, it can't be demanded.
Yeah,
No,
right.
no.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and at the planning board.
Land is your
can
land.
Consider it, but, right, in the other cases, there was a similar case recently, and we didn't demand that they move the driveway, but that applicant, chose to work with the neighboring property owner and
I
try
know,
to come
we
to
just had that.
agreement.
Yes.
Um,
Well, it was suggested.
it was suggested,
That's
right?
still in the air.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
What I'll say is the common driveway here, although it's similar to what we just saw in the last application, I do see a little bit of a difference because, you know, the house is not so far from the new access easement. You know, that other case, you kind of had to traverse the lot. Here, if you use this as the driveway, you do only have, you know, the house is still right here. Still common driveway on the face of it does seem to make more sense to me here. And I am more familiar with Accabonac, and Accabonac is a pretty busy,
Oh, yeah.
pretty busy road, where you don't want unnecessary curb cuts.
No.
Moving on to the next section of the memo, the site engineering design. If we did have a common driveway, we would just want the town engineer to review it. We would need a common driveway profile for the technical evaluation. Then moving on to the next section of the memo, the application currently indicates that there's an approximately 6,000 square foot scenic easement in the frontage of the lot. The comments we received from the applicant's attorney after this said that the easement's not proposed, it's actually recorded. I didn't review the documentation, but they've provided it, so please take that correction. We do want to say that this is consistent with the planning board guidance that there's a 10% easement or reserve area. However, the area doesn't seem to be vegetated in a manner that would be consistent with a scenic or reserved area. So we would suggest that as part of this, a revegetation of the area consistent kind of with town standards be part of the planning board decision. We do note that the survey provided indicated that the lot was currently in compliance with the town clearing regulations. I believe the public comment that we received questioned whether or not that was accurate, so we will be doing a site visit just to ensure that we believe with the surveyor's assessment that the clearing is compliant. So that's a to-do for us. The rest of the memo goes through kind of the standard requirements for subdivisions. We need information on water supply and sanitary systems. We need information on stormwater collection. The town engineer will have to review all this technical information once it's added to the map. And then, you know, of course, Suffolk County Health Services approvals can be required eventually. In conclusion, the application's incomplete pending the kind of resolution of what the appropriate site access is and the rest of the engineering details. I just discussed. However, the proposal is consistent with the zoning of the area. Thank you.
Tina, before the applicant comes up, building envelope.
Yes, so, we are recommending that we just put building envelopes on because it says so in the code. And we would just annotate the maps that building envelopes are shown consistent with zoning district. We suggested that.
And it'll just basically indicate that it conforms to.
Exactly, just to really show where we're, proposing development, to give you an idea of, okay, you approve this, here's where the developments are appropriate.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Samantha Malone. I'm an attorney at Tarbert and Lester on behalf of the applicant. Thank you. So thank you for your comments. We've reviewed them and we will be addressing them. Yeah, any other comments?
Well, then we'll have that.
Okay.
You're here for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well, thank you. All right, Ed, this one's yours.
This is, yes, it is. So, thanks, Tina. Thank you very much. I always hate to see subdivisions in Suffolk County groundwater protection areas, but, this is a pretty large lot and it is in a neighborhood with much smaller lots, right? And there are many non-conforming lots in Montauk Estates, which is this little neighborhood that it's in. And certainly what you're proposing here generally conforms to what we like to see. Definitely a common driveway, scenic easement, for sure, and the house is set back, far enough from the road for that to be possible. I think it should be revegetated, so it's more in compliance with, our standards for scenic easements. And I do think that since we already have public comment about things like buffer, that it is something to really consider here. That house to the south is very close. I think it would be, a neighborly action. And that's really it for me. I don't have any other comments. I think there are a few things to be legalized on your property, though, I think, right? There's a shed and a fence. Yeah, okay. All right. I don't really have anything else.
Great. Anybody else have any comment? Please.
So, have you guys gotten back the abandoned road, or is that in the process?
So we have abandoned the paper road there, yes.
Okay, so that's part of the property now.
Yes.
Okay. My second question is, how far does Maple Lane come down from the top left? Has that property owner up there obtained part of that abandoned road, or does the road go down to his property? I'm just wondering if you can use that access to gain access to the back lot instead of doing an easement down. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh, you mean like this here?
Yeah, sure.
No, can I get up and?
Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah.
I'm just wondering how far this comes down.
It looks like it hits it.
Looks like it goes down and makes a left into that
This guy's
driveway.
property, or does the road come down and terminate here?
I'm not,
If we could gain access from there, it might
yeah.
be better.
We would have to look into that. I'm not sure. Thank you.
That's a potentially really good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it would resolve the problem that the member of the public, the neighboring property raised.
Yes.
And you'd have a pretty good access. Actually, that's onto Queens. Is that Queens?
Yeah, I'm trying to see the name of the road here, and it's not coming up.
Maple.
It looks like it's.
Oh, is it still Maple? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Queens is a better access, I would think, than Accabonac Road.
Well, it's Queens to a smaller road.
To the smaller road, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm saying, yeah, okay, but the Maple goes on to Queens. It's not having a driveway straight onto Accabonac Road.
No,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, right, yes, exactly.
So, from that perspective.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that is a great idea, Thank
Okay.
you.
So
I'm gonna.
I'm gonna,
You win. Great idea.
Well done, Bruce.
Great idea tonight.
Wow, take the rest of the month off.
You earned your pay.
so that would also require a modification to the UR map, right? To redesignate the access for this parcel 8A to be not this dot, but this dot. So that would be another, if the applicant chose to do that, that would be another modification. But yeah, reduce the pavement.
And then just one comment for clarification, the scenic easement was recorded in 1979. So there is an existing, I know that you mentioned it, but yeah, there is an existing scenic easement in the front.
Anyone else have any comments?
No.
I'll run through the questions. Does the planning board find the proposed urban renewal modification acceptable? If so, does the map need further clarification prior to sending a recommendation to the town board in favor of the proposal? And based on what was just said, we might
have to
hold that question in abeyance or rephrase it. No, it does. But the applicant will look into that. So, okay. Does the planning board agree that additional details should be provided pertaining to site access for each parcel proposed with this application? And again, that's TBA, to be announced. Does the planning board agree that a common driveway? Thank you.
Every now and then. Every now and then.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
Wait till you read the next one.
Yeah.
Does the planning board agree a common driveway should be provided to serve the residential subdivision and that the engineering plan should be submitted for this feature? And again, you're going to be filtering all these through we're going to name this street after Bruce.
There's already a street called Bruce in
Is
town.
there? Okay. How about Cisco Road?
Oh, that's true.
All right, should the subdivision include mapping of a scenic easement or similar mechanism to protect the frontage along Accabonac Road? I think you're gonna have that one way or the other.
It seems to have been done, right?
Sounds like it's
Yeah,
been
it's been-
1979.
Yeah, 1979.
So we're
Right, so
done.
we didn't know that the easement was already recorded when we wrote this.
Okay, so we'll just,
So that's,
do we need to confirm that?
I'm gonna read what they
You'll
provided,
confirm
but
it?
I'm
Okay,
assuming
very
that it's.
Yeah, in the title report, it would be.
So then that's another maybe. All right, is a revegetation plan required for the scenic easement reserve area to ensure its effectiveness as a vegetative buffer per code requirements? And we'll see what it says, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as it currently stands. it
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
well,
vegetative.
right, they'll have to, but it may be done already. Does the planning board agree that additional details should be provided pertaining to the water supply systems for the proposed sub-waiver? Yeah.
Yes.
Does the planning board agree that additional details should be provided pertaining to stormwater drainage for the proposed sub-waiver, regardless of where it is? Okay. You got homework.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now move into our regular meeting. We have Northwest Estates final modification. Lou?
I don't know that.
You don't have it?
It's stapled to the minutes.
Yeah, I was looking for it.
Oh, is that where it is?
Yeah, the
The
second,
minutes are these
second,
long.
second set of minutes we got. They're at the back.
Here it is. Is this for the Schlesinger public hearing?
No.
Oh, these are the ones,
Those were from last.
right.
Oh,
Those are the
that's
ones.
what-
That's
Oh.
what those
Oh,
are.
then we didn't get
Yeah,
it.
those are minutes.
Cody, do we happen to have this one?
No, I don't have,
No?
I have Muse.
Is Northwest Estates final, is it any kind of time issue?
No,
So
no, that was just modification,
can-
so we'll just do it next meeting.
go over to the next meeting. Okay, you're off the hook.
Sorry, Lou.
All right, and have we all had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they are indeed. And can we get a motion to approve the?
Make that motion.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Bye.
Pass 7-0. Okay, with that, we will have our next meeting is the 20th, I believe. Okay, so then, see you on the 20th. And can we get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Bye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, Matt.